this video is to talk about payroll processing, starting with the time card. After we have the time cards entered, we'll move into creating a payroll batch, which is essentially going to bring in all the time activities, which will then go into processing the paychecks and creating payroll payments. After we've processed the payroll, we'll go through and review how we can create liability bills using Acumatica's bill functionality within the payroll, which will create liability bills for all of your vendors that are set up. And then after that, we'll just do a quick start on what the government reports look like in Acumatica using Atrix. We are not actually going to go into Atrix. We are going to just kind of start the process. I'll log in and I'll kind of show you what that looks like on Atrix's side. All right, so with that said, we'll get started. Here we are at the employee time card screen. There are quite a few ways to enter time, including time entered on the mobile app. But today we're going to focus on entering time at the summary level, which will be high level information. There is that detail level where you can go down into the multiple different activities that you've done for the day, but we're going to focus on the summary, and the summary will actually translate over to the details tab as we start populating it. So using Pat Farrell as our time card entry, all of this can be done by the specific user. In our video here today, I will just be doing it through the admin profile, but Pat or whoever your employee is would be entering their time on their own behalf. So we're going to start by adding a new record, and the default earning type will come in, which is regular earnings. And if it's project time, then you can specify a project. So we're going to pick on these project 28, and then we'll define our task, which you can pick from a group, or you can just select, you can type it in if it's already known. You can select if it's a certified job. There are additional requirements on the project that would need to be selected. This is not a union employee, so we are going to remove that. And the labor item is going to dictate what GL accounts that transaction is supposed to post to. And then there's a workers' comp code, which is predefined based off the labor item that they're doing. So now essentially we're just going to put in all the hours that we've worked on this job. So let's just say on we did 4 days on this job, and then the rest of it was just admin work in office, which is not project specific. So we're just going to do this to project X, which is the non-project code. We'll get rid of that union again, and we're going to tab over and enter 8 hours for Friday. Once you're happy with that time card, or the employee is happy with that time card, they can submit it, and depending on the structure, it can be routed for approval. So in this instance, we're going to submit this time card, which will be routed to approval. So as I submit it, you can now see that the status of this time card is now pending approval, and we'll move over to the approval tab, and you can see that Maxwell Baker is the person that this time card approval has been assigned to. I actually am logged in as Maxwell Baker, so I'm going to go ahead and approve this. And once this is approved, this essentially goes back into a status where you just need to go in and release it. This can also be set up to release upon approval as well. So I've actually already submitted a few other time cards in here. So essentially this one example is all we need. And now we can actually move over into our payroll processing. So we'll want to find the payroll module within our workspace, which is right here. And we are actually going to create a new payroll batch. What a payroll batch does is it groups the employees based off the same pay cycle, and it'll allow you to bring in their time activities, or if they're salaried employees, you could actually bring in their default rates and things like that. So the paychecks are essentially ready to go. So as we open that new payroll batch, it's just going to be a regular payroll type. And then since we are talking about construction payroll, I will be using the construction weekly pay group. And then I'm going to go ahead and select the pay period. And that pay period was number 5/2025. And so that's transaction date right here of 1:30, and then this is the week period, the start and the end date. So once I select that, it actually gets defined here. The description is optional, but you can fill it in if needed. And then essentially we're going to go down here to this employee tab, and we're going to go ahead and click add employees. When you click add employees, it's going to bring in all employees associated with this specific pay group. And so these are all the construction employees that we have. I did not actually fill out time cards for every single one. So I'm actually going to click toggle selected, which is going to unselect all of them. And then I'm going to select the three employees that I did use as an example. And so as I selected them, before I click add and close down here, I am going to go ahead and click this time activities checkbox, which is going to override the employee defaults based off the time card data. So once I do that and click add and close, that will just bring in the employees that we listed. And if there are any errors, we will find out here. So now this brings in the hours and it brings in whatever rate that they had on their employee record, and then their just gross total amounts. Once you've brought in all your employees, you can take this off hold and then you would release this. And when you release this, it's going to go ahead and create your individual paychecks for the employees within this payroll batch. And so once this is processed, we're waiting for that green checkbox, which we just got. So now you can see that it's created 3 different paychecks, all going in numerical order for so 599, 600, and 601. And then essentially this allows you to drill in and take a look at their paychecks. So the next step in the process, once you've created those paychecks, is actually to calculate the paychecks. And you can do this individually at the paychecks and adjustment screen, or you can actually do this as a batch, which is typically what most organizations will do since you're probably running payroll for multiple employees at a time. So moving over to the processes section, we're going to go to process payroll documents. And then under the actions, we're going to go ahead and select calculate. And what calculate does is it's going to run it through the tax symmetry software that Acumatica is connected to. That's going to search through all the taxes based off all the work locations, the employee addresses, the business addresses, and take all that information, take all those states and populate it onto the screen that we can actually take a look at. It's actually this screen here, so I'll open that in a new tab. So this tax maintenance software, this tax maintenance screen is based off a tax symmetry software that you can actually run. So once you click update taxes, the system is going to go ahead and take a look at all the addresses that you have on employee records, on your work locations, and on your company addresses, and pull in all the states and tax, obviously federal taxes, as well as local taxes for that specific state. And then you would define the tax rates and things like that. And you can also assign it to employees at this level. So this is already up to date, so we don't need to rerun this. But if addresses were changed or if there was an update to the taxes, you would actually get a pop-up that shows up that will let you know that you should run the tax symmetry software. So now that we've gone through the tax symmetry or tax maintenance, we're going to go ahead and click, we're going to use the calculate as the action from the drop down, and then we're going to go ahead and click process all. And so when I click process all, it's going to do all of the ones that we have here instead of me having to individually click them. So once this is processed, it's going to actually, calculate the taxes. It's going to take a look at the deductions and benefits and contributions, PTO. It's going to calculate everything related to your paycheck and give you your net income or what that employee would be paid for that check at the net value, as well as the details. So once this is done, we will actually move over to the paycheck and take a look at that. So we got the green okay, and so these 3 were processed. When I click OK, they are actually removed from the screen because they have already been calculated. So if I go back to payroll and click in paychecks and adjustments, we can actually take a look at one of those 3 checks. So we'll take a look at Pat since that's the one we've been picking on. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click 601, which is the last one that we have, and we'll just kind of talk high level on this information on this paycheck. So we can see that there's gross pay is $1,200, and then we can see the deductions that were calculated based off the setup, and then also the taxes. So this employee actually did have 4 days on a specific project that was not their home state. So this project was based out of Virginia, and the home state is actually in Washington State. So complete opposite ends of the country, but wanted to really show you how you could see that Acumatica gives you that flexibility to manage your payroll and those particular tax requirements that are relatively common in the construction industry. So I'll pop over to the taxes tab so we can take a quick peek. So here we can see there's that federal section up here, which is all like the federal related taxes based off the total taxable wages of $1,200. And then we can take a look at the state taxes, right? So Virginia, there was 4 days, so 4 times 8 times his hourly rate is $960. And then you can see that he's taxed based off those amounts. And then the Washington state, right? Those two are taxed at that 1 day, which is the 8 hours times the hourly rate, right? And then these local taxes are based off of the, total taxable wages, but you can see that it is breaking it down based off where that job site was located. Another tab I'd want to point out are just the deductions. This is essentially where you would list out, if you have whatever your benefits are. And, here high level, you can see that some of them are deductions, some of them are contributions, some of them are both. So you have a lot of flexibility here as well. And then it does also calculate paid time off. You can have multiple PTO banks depending on what your organization or your business processes are. And it also calculates what that looks like. And then if this was a certified project, it would give some information here. So this is in the pending payment status. So really the next step for these 3 checks would be to add these paychecks to a payment batch. And then that would allow you to print the checks and the pay stubs. And if they were ACH, you could print out that NACHA file that would be uploaded to the bank for direct deposit. So the 3 employees that I picked all are paid via check. So we'll look at that, but the process is relatively the same. So we're going to also do this at the batch level because you're not going to really typically be doing this individually unless it's a special paycheck. So we're going to come here to processes and click create payroll payment. And what this is going to do is it's going to ask us to put in the payment method. So this is where you have a few options. So you have your check or your direct deposit, your means of your payment. So I'm going to go ahead and click check. And that's actually going to bring in the default cash account, which is your bank account that you pay your payroll out of. And it brings in the next paycheck number that falls in your check run. And I'm actually going to go ahead and just click process all. If there are only a handful that you wanted to process, you can actually just come in here and individually select the ones that you wanted to and use the process option. But for our case, we're just going to go ahead and have all of them and we're going to just process all. So what this is going to do is take us to the next screen where we'll be able to print our paychecks, take a look at what that pay stub looks like, and then we can actually confirm and release this to our general ledger. So right now we're in the ready to print status. So that means we just need to come in here to the 3 dots and we want to go ahead and click print checks. So now we have our check screen. And now you can see at a high level, this is what our paycheck would look like. The top section is the check stub, and then the bottom side is your pay stub. And here we can see our taxes, we can see our benefits, we can see our deductions. Obviously, we have our regular hourly, our hourly rates and our earnings, our pay period, our pay period and check dates. And then you also have your PTO banks down here. And then really, if you just click this caret, it goes to the next page and it goes to the next employee. And you would just essentially print all of these and, mail these to the employees or, hand them over to them. The ACH would look very similar to this, except it would just have the not a real check kind of like watermark on here. But it would give them their pay stub. And so once that they've been printed, you can go ahead and click confirm payment, which is going to tell you that this payroll has been paid, and the last step would be to release that so then it updates the general ledger. And so once that's processed, you've actually completed your payroll for that week, and then you will just do it again next week. All right, so once this is done, we're actually going to look at a few more things or 2 more things on the agenda for this video. And so now that those have been printed, wanted to talk a little bit about creating those liability bills and the government reporting associated with what Acumatica has. So we'll start with create liability bills, which is essentially going to tee up that AP bill that you are going to get from your your benefit providers or your 401k brokers, or even your tax bills, right? So I'm actually going to limit this based off the branch that we're in, which is kind of the location that we're going to be working on. So we'll do production wholesale, and we'll take a look at, you can see that we have all of these paychecks that were the ones that we ran, and you can go ahead and select which ones you want to print, or if you want to process, or you can actually process them all. And if you process them, what it's going to do is actually create that AP bill, but put it in a balance state so that it can still be reviewed through the financial department. And if they need to make any changes or adjustments, they still have that capability. So I'm actually going to change this filter and just do our tax bill. So let's just focus on that. And so once I put that tax bill in, it's going to go ahead and do every single tax bill that we have. And I'm actually going to do it even a little bit more granular, and we'll just do the IRS as our vendor, right? So if I go ahead and process this, we have 24 records. What this is going to do is it's going to create one bill for the total amount of these lines for the IRS, and that'll just set it up, and we'll take a look. So once I process this, these will actually be removed from this create liability screen. So we will no longer see the IRS government on our list for create liability bills. So as you can see, our filters are still there, but we do not have any records for that. So now where you would need to go is under payables. We'll just take a quick look at what that looks like here. So if I open these bills and adjustments in a new screen, we will actually see that bill for the IRS created and ready for waiting for us. So if we come in here, we have this 1359, or sorry, 1345.49. I used the same example last time, so that's why there were two, but essentially this is the one that we created today, 327. You can see that it's in the balance state, and that it would just be routed to approval for, through the workflow that we have defined for you. All right. I just released this here. Now it'll post to our AP bill. Perfect. The last thing I wanted to go through are just some of the government reportings that we have. So Atrix, so Acumatica uses Atrix for some of their government reporting. It does make it a lot easier, but it is a separate service associated with it. And that basically will allow you to, sync up your payroll documents and pre-populate some of the government forms that are required for payroll processing. And it'll predefine and allow you to review it, and you can go ahead and file and pay your taxes from there. So I'm actually going to use the state of Virginia here for us. So I'm going to define the state, and then I'm also going to define, if there was a slew list, you can, if there was a longer list, you can actually kind of get more granular, which is like the different, reporting period. So I'm going to do the quarterly one, and then we'll just look at the FC 20 and 21, which are both quarterly reports that we need to file. And so if I do 2025 as the year, and we just do quarter one, and we run that report, by doing that, it actually kind of opens up Atrix within your Acumatica screen, within your Acumatica instance directly. So it's not like you have to navigate to a different window or a different browser or anything like that. It's actually all done within your Acumatica user interface. So I'm going to go ahead and put my username and password in and log in. And depending on, we may not be able to do too much here, but you'll be able to review your company accounts and your, state income numbers, your account numbers and all that good stuff here. So right now, what the system is doing, it's waiting for the payroll data, it's validating that payroll data, and then it's going to kind of let us know if there's any information missing. I'm just letting this load. So processing complete. All right, so it brought in company information, so we're not going to have any changes. We're just going to go ahead and click save. And then here's our verifying our company information, the address. Here's my contact information. And then basically who's filing. So I'm filing for this employee. This will, and if there were any errors or any issues here, you'd see a red box that's highlighting those issues. So here we don't have anything. So we're just going to go ahead and click next. There we go. And then it should go ahead and open our report. All right, so now this is our quarterly report, and essentially you would just kind of go in here and review this. Obviously, you could put the title in here, and once you're done with that, you would just go through the following steps, which is to review and e-file. You can also record record a copy. You could save your work to here, and then you can close it. So you would follow this process through these steps, and then it'll just simply walk you through it. All right. Well, thank you for your time today, and I hope this was helpful. Thanks.